Well, good morning. My name is Pablo Tesone, and I will talk today about developing applications in Pharo. The idea today is that we are going to see a little what we can do with Pharo to develop applications in a more professional way that we can directly deliver to our users. Well, the first thing is clearly that we all love to develop in Smalltalk. We all love to have our cool tools. We all love to develop in Pharo. So we want to develop Pharo everywhere. But the thing is that not all the applications that we are doing are the same. We will need to use different technologies and especially different way of interacting with the users. For example, we can have, it's not the same, one application to develop for a web application or a desktop application, so we will have to handle it in different ways. Just a simple reminder that we are not going to spend too much time on this, but it's good to remind that Pharo is a really nice and rich ecosystem where we have a lot of tools and libraries and frameworks that we can use to develop applications. If we see them just very fast, we can see that, for example, for doing web applications, we have a lot of options that are present in other Smalltalk or are from the Pharo community, but we have a lot of options and actually we are really cool in the web application development. The same happens when we start seeing about building applications that use REST server or they have to consume REST APIs. We have a lot of different options. We have the excellent package of Sync, or we have all the work that has been done in the Buenos Aires Smalltalk group about exposing and consuming web REST APIs. And of course, we have Tpod that allows us to do something really quick, really fast, and for small servers is really useful. There is a lot of documentation generated by the community, and it's really cool. So it's nice to have it. Also, if we are doing IoT applications, in Pharo we have the ability that we have our native VM and it's built it and keep it updated all the time for ARM32 and ARM64 with a native sheet, and it's quite good, and it can interact with existing libraries and all the operating systems that we have in the devices. Also, there are a really nice project that is Pharo Things, that is a way of having a more dynamic experience when working with IoT devices. And it has also documentation, a lot of documentation written for that. For desktop applications, I will not enter, but we have a really excellent framework that is Spec that allows us to have different backends. The backend to use with Morphic, to have the applications developed in the same way that we develop the tools that are in Pharo. But also there has been in the last years a lot of work to expose a new backend that is implemented in GTK. GTK is basically a set of widgets, a way of building UI, desktop UIs that is portable to many operating systems and support. Especially we use it because it has excellent support in Linux, in OS X, and in Windows. And we use it daily. Spec, the main thing, Spec is integrated in Pharo, and we use it daily for our own development. Also, there is still a work to be done, but there is a backend of Spec to use with Block and Brick. This is work that is in progress, but eventually will arrive. And the idea is that Spec is intended to have multiple backends and to produce an application that we can run in different ways. We can select them to execute it without Morphic or with Morphic, or we can load it in a minimal image. I will talk a little later more. But allows us to build an application that looks and feels like another application in the operating system. Other set of applications that we can cover with Pharo are the command line applications, command line tools. And in this support, we have a lot of things. They are already loaded in Pharo because we are using them daily. For example, we are using them to run in our CI to run the test, or use it also daily to run Pharo from the command line. One thing that is good for for building these kinds of applications is that our VM is completely independent of the graphic UI, does not have the dependencies, so we can deploy a command line application that we can run without having any kind of support. This was not always like this. You should remember that a long time ago we have some dependencies with the UI, even if we are not running it or opening the window. So we have taken one of these beautiful approaches. We have taken one or more or 10 or whatever library we have, and we developed our application and it's running. We have our test running, we are happy, everything goes. So let's go party. But no, not so fast. Now we need to see how to make it available to the users. And this is really the point of this presentation. Because once we have the development part done, we have written a lot of tests, we are really good, we have done the acceptance with our customers, we need to think on first doing these steps. We'll need a release version of our application, and we will talk what that means. We will need to do some branding of our application, give some verification, distribution, deployment, and error handling. These are things that during the development process we let to the end, but we have to think it, to talk about them from the beginning. If we just leave it at the end, we will have a really big problem. In this presentation, I will center in the first 4 that are enough to talk. The last 2 will not be seen here in this presentation, but if you have some questions, we have ideas and ways to solve these problems, because they are nice problems but their own. Basically, the deployment is how we can, or what are the tools that we have, or what are the options that we have to deploy an application that requires a server. And error handling is what happens when the user has an error. We just crash, or we try to resolve it in another way. We can reproduce it or not. Actually, this can be a conference in itself, because we can have many, many ways of doing it. So let's see the ones that we are really going to center on this presentation. First, what we have is that usually when we are developing, we have our Pharo image, that is the development version that we will downloaded with the zeroconf or the Pharo launcher, but it's the full image with all the tools and all the things. And usually what we do is that we load our code and we try it, we develop it, we make it evolve. However, what happens when we want to ship this to our final users? We want to really distribute the whole Pharo image with all the tools, the UI, the debugger, and all the things that we use all the time. Maybe you can say, oh, okay, well, they are 50 megas, 100 megas, it's not a problem. But from the experience to the user, is it good if we send the tools, the UI, the debugger, how we open it? We want to give it access from a security point of view, or even a usability point of view. You can tell me, I don't care if the user open the debugger and start seeing my code. I don't care. Yes, but the experience could be really nasty for the users. It can be really, really bad experience. So we don't want to do that. So what we are proposing, and we are continue working on this is all what I am presenting here. This is not the final stage. We are in the way of improving, and if you want, we can interact to have an evolution of this. What we want to do is have a really modular Pharo, so we can provide the Pharo that you really need for your application. During the bootstrap of our image, I don't know if you know, but our image, every version of the image is new and starts from scratch. It starts empty. And we are creating the objects and installing the code and creating everything that we know on demand. So the idea that we want, that we already have a version, is that we can start with a really minimal image without the tools and just the minimal runtime that we want to have. Of course, this minimal, we call it minimal, but we need to continue working. As Steph said, we want to work on the modularization and have more minimal things, like smaller, smaller, smaller. So what we propose is that we can take the minimal image that is generated from Pharo and load just the dependencies and the tools that are used. In this case, this arrow, nowadays, we are using, or we suggest to use Metacello. That is a really good way of improving. But we are working also in a new way of describing projects, and more flexible and more nice, that is Packbot. So if you have ideas or things that you want or desires, maybe you can talk to Christophe, but we don't promise nothing. Remember that we now work on what we can eat. We need to munch only what we can eat. Okay. This is first step. We need to have a release version. Still, we are going kind of easy. If you need help to do this, just ask us. There are a lot of people already doing it. A lot of applications that are shipped. We are working in this way. But if you need it and you are interested or you have suggestions, talk to us. But basically, the idea is that you have to keep is that we want to take and ship only what is needed.
Pablo,
yes?
Just a comment. This is important when you are deploying to the cloud because you are paying by the amount of RAM you are occupying. So the bigger is the image, the more you are charged. So yes.
Yes, that's important. It's easy when what Nuri said, that it's important to have smaller images and minimal images because, as everybody knows, when deploying in the cloud now, we are charged by the resources that we are using, and of course, this goes in that way. But not only is always a problem of money, it's also could be a problem of other resources. Like using more memory, for example, can make that our application, the user feel it sluggish or feel it that is not applicable in their working day, and they say, oh no, I have to close all my applications or all my Google Chrome tabs to use your application. Is not worthy. Yes.
How large is the minimal image?
Well, the minimal image now is in the 20s of megabytes. We are working to reduce it more. 20 is like 24, 25, depends on the version, because it's a really, really, really tough work to keep the dependencies and not screw it up at all. Because for where you are developing and adding things, it's easy to say, yes, let's include something else, and you know how work dependencies. Taking one and you take all the universe inside. Yes.
Minimal image you mean without the UI also?
It does not have the UI. It already has Metacello and network support, so you can load code from scratch. There is another baseline that you can then do to load a minimal morphic that does not have, it allows you to create morphic components, but it does not have the tools of the UI. And then you can also start adding new baselines. During the bootstrap process, what we do, I am talking in Metacello concept, but basically a baseline is a project. So we load the Pharo project that has all and starts loading the smaller project. What we want to do, and Steph said in the presentation about Pharo 10 and Pharo 11, is that we want to reduce even more the granularity of the projects that we are loading, so you can choose in a better way. And in a dream world, I would like to have like a way that is easy to know what you are loading or not loading. Nowadays, as this process is kind of a manual, but we are wanting to improve it, and we are open to a lot of feedback. Once we have our image, our small image, we need to do some what is called branding. This is really, 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 really important from the point of view of the experience of the user, because we need to ensure that the user sees the application and recognize our application as our application. Yes? Oh, sorry, I missed the button. This, to me, is the most important thing, because the user has to feel that it's open an application. This gives not only some assurance to the user, feeling that it's using the correct way, but also it assures that we are showing ourselves as a professional developers. No? It's important that we not only are good, we show also good. So basically, this can go from easy things that having our own icons in our application, in our executable, but also other things like, for example, that when we show the metadata of the application, we show the correct name of the developer, the correct way that it was created. For example, one simple thing that is really, really important is that the executable file, for example, of the application does not say Pharo. I like to have the name of my application. Even if it's good that the people know that I am using Pharo, for a final user, I always thinking my mother using my application, seeing it Pharo, it will start panicking, saying, what is this? What is this? This is a virus. I don't know. And then we will have to handle some things that are really important also, but sometimes we forgot about them. For example, we want the Pharo window to open or not. We want which is the application title, what we are showing. We are showing that we have a .image file behind or not, or we are showing just my cool application on the top. The same. How we will handle additional windows or about dialog? The good thing that we have been working a lot is that most of these things in this little list is that we can do it from the image side, because nowadays the window, all the handling of the events is done by the window itself. But we will need to work on this first part of elements. So we will need to work in the building. What is the architecture that we are suggesting in this scenario? Well, basically what we want to do is using Pharo as another library. As another library that we can have in our application. We want that the VM itself is a library, and my application could be a thin or more bigger layer that is using the Pharo application. So like that we can provide our own icons, our own information, and integrated it in our process. Basically, we will have a little application, a little executable for the application itself that will invoke the Pharo VM and that will use the code loaded in the image. Basically, this library we are providing it today. One of the things that we changed in the development of Pharo is that we are not only generating the VM as a library that can be included in any other application, but also we are providing all the headers and easy way to include it, and we are keeping it for all the versions. This is the image. Of course, we are going to generate as usual as we have it loading code. And we will need to work on this. Here it says, oh, you can tell me, oh, this is a lot of work. Yes, it's a lot of work that basically are something like 60 lines of code, if we count the comments. So here, oh, this is really small, sorry. We have an example of how to do this. Basically, it's a simple CMake script that will build the application, and it will integrate with our library. Of course, this can be extended and can be extended to add more and more things that we resolve in our thin layer. That's why we call it the thin layer. And it can be done, but allows us to execute. For the most of the applications that we only want to brand it with an icon and generate an executable, the code as it is can be taken directly and use it freely. We will add some resources that provides us with information that is needed for the OS. Especially in Windows, we will have a resource files with the information about the application and the icon. This is quite important nowadays, because every time that an application you are trying to run, depending on the configuration, we require to the user, you want to run this application, and this is the information shown. So if it's here, it says, basically it says nothing nice or recognizable by the user, the most probably will not run it. And the same, it happens in OS X, where we can define the metadata that, for example, if we can handle documents, we will like to define the associations there. basically, with the example, we will need to execute something like this, and this will directly do the configuration. In the repository, there is more. In the repository, there is more information of how to resolve this. Another important step that I want to make a lot of point in this, I want to spend time in the presentation, is that we have to work on the verification of our application. Basically, you can call it verification, signing, authentication. There are audit. There is different way of calling this step, but the important thing is that this step is very, very important. We should guarantee that our application, it has not been modified by no one else that we, and also we have to give support to the user to realize this, to handle this situation and be sure that we are installing what they want to execute and nothing else. So for doing that, we will need to validate or execute or sign, depending on the platform we are targeting. We will need to do it for all the code that we are executing. And we have a really big problem with Pharo, is that how we guarantee this for the image, because actually we have a lot of executable code in the image, and we can do really pretty nasty things with it. So, well, for the application part, it's easy. We can follow any of the guidelines in the target operating system, but what is the idea for the image? Well, basically, what we are proposing, the first step, there are two alternatives we are proposing. It could be more. If you want, we can talk about that. It will be interesting. But the first alternative is embedding the image as a resource. If we are sure that the image will not be used to store data, so it will not modify it during the normal execution of our application, we can take and embed the image inside our own executable. In this way, we can handle the signing of the image and the validation of the image in the side of the operating system, as is part of the executable. When we are signing the executable file, the signing will include the validation of the image. This is really, really nice when we can ensure that the application will be validated by the signing done by the operating system. And every time we execute, we can be sure that the image has not been tainted. Yes? Of course, if we are updating, the problem here is how we update the code. Well, when we update the code, we will have to update as we were updating any other application in the system. We will need to use a real installer. We cannot update our application just saying adding a button that downloads source code from the cloud or using a Metacello script, for example, because why we are doing all this handling if then we are going to install code arbitrarily from without control. For doing this, we will need to change how the image is loaded and read it and handled by the VM, but this is not difficult. We have already worked on the VM side and exposed the API to be done this. So it's easier. We will see the example when we talk after the alternative 2. For the alternative 2, the idea is that we can also have the application signed for ourselves. Yes, we can sign the application using cryptographic tools, and then we will need to. The good thing about this is that we can update the application just updating the image, but we need to also modify our reading of the application to check this image. And it has a drawback that is important, is that, okay, we can validate this, image that we are signing ourselves, but we have to guarantee in a way or another that we are doing it properly. Because if we check wrong the signature and we screw it up, well, why we are signing it if we are going to read wrong? It's like having a lot of locks in the door of your house and you leave it open. So we have another responsibility, that is check that we are signing and checking it correctly. As we are not validating with the, okay, as I said before, we are not validating by the OS, so we have to do it ourselves. Basically, in the same example, is in the same repository, there is an example of how to change the loading code to read it, in this case, from an embedded file, but there is also an example how to read and handle a assigned image. So that way, we can generate an image that is safe, and we are sure that we are not executed whatever code that we have it. As I say, we implemented it in the same fashion. We get to another really important thing, that is, okay, we have now our executable files, we have our package, we are doing our package in a way that is coherent with the operating system. Well, in Windows and OS X, what we are going to do is we can use any standard tool that is there for creating installers. You can, if you have questions about it, you can ask us or Christoph, that is maintaining the installer for the Pharo launcher, and can tell his experience and what the hints to use. But basically, as we have a package of our application, we can do it as any other application in another operating system, in another other language, and we can develop it using the tools. For Linux, this is the presentation. I would like to talk about the solution that we propose for Linux. For Linux, we propose to use OBS, or Open Build Services, that basically is a really nice way of attacking the difference between distributions. Depending if you are developing Linux applications, you should know, or you should already suffer it. I am sure that mostly you already suffer. What happens when the people start running the application in different distributions? Nowadays, we have two big branches that are the Debian-like things and the Arch-like, Manjaro-like, and they are completely different. And usually, we cannot port, giving a binary version of one or the other, does not work. Eventually, it is a problem. So for doing that, the people of SUSE came with the idea of having this service that is really cool for generating for a lot of different distributions. This is the map. Sorry if it's not so read, but the important thing is that there are a lot of distributions and architecture combinations. This is the map of packages that we are generating for the Pharo project. Like this, we can have executable versions that are, for example, ready to run in Raspbian 11 in ARM 32 bits, or in Fedora 33 for x86. And like this, we can generate and build natively against each of the distributions. So we don't start having problems if this one uses glibc 234 and this one uses glibc 223 and they are incompatible or whatever. This is really, really good. We are using it a lot. It took time. We have a lot of experience. Again, if you want to do it, you can check our code or asking, or the correct way will be building your package. Having one of the dependencies will be our VM. This is called Pharo 9, but because we are using the same VM for the Pharo 9, 10, and 11, but it's still called Pharo 9 because there has not been a major release that broke compatibility. We didn't change the version. This solution is ideal for open source because basically the packages can be integrated easily in the official repositories of the distributions. Can be also, it provides us with repositories that are already there handled by the tool to generate the metadata and the updates. And so every time we push a new version, the build system will build in all the different distributions, and it will generate a new package, and the user will get a notification saying, there is a new version you want to update, as it happens with any other package of the system. For non-open source project, also this is really cool because it's a solution that is also designed to be run in-house. They have extended support for Docker, and what you have to do if you have to build for different applications and you want to do in-house, what you use, we will do a Docker image for each of the distribution, and well, we'll run the build process locally. Well, you will have to provide the hardware to run it, but you can run it and generate the same application or the distribution for different, the same package or different package, let's say, to each of the distributions. Finally, to me, it's important to talk about, do a quick remembering about FFI, because this is important for us for doing real applications. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We love to program in Smalltalk. We love to re-implement things. We love to do it better because we can do it better, always. But we are here, as I said, kind of in a more professional hat. We can do it that on the weekend, in the afternoon, because it's fun. We love it. But let's try not to have to re-implement, I don't know. We want to use a cryptographic algorithm. Let's use the one on SSL. We don't need to read all the documentation and try to understand the bit banging that we have to do. So remember always that Pharo has a really interesting support for FFI, where we can use it to call external library, but also to integrate ourselves with the operating system. For example, one thing that we have a lot of work done, if somebody is interested, I can pass the links, but we have a lot of work done that Esteban has integrated with the Cocoa and all the support of Windows in Mac. So for example, to show natively the notifications like any other application in OS X, or using in Windows how to handle the operations to register to opening files and registering to opening different file types. We have working a lot on that, and you always using FFI. The same, for example, another example is how we can configure or customize the toolbar, the main toolbar in OS X, like from our application directly from Pharo code. And this is really, really important because we can communicate with anything that has a C API. Like this, well, as I say before, we reuse libraries that are already well done. For example, what was yesterday Sebastian talking about using why we don't use the highly optimized implementations of some math algorithms like in LAPAC, or how we interact with the system to be a nice citizen and not an alien application. This is really important. It's integrated in Pharo. We have a nice booklet to start using it. There are a lot of bindings for libraries. As soon as we started publishing it, people start doing bindings of a lot of different libraries. So if you have questions in the Discord, just asking, hey, hi, somebody has a binding for this or that library, and it's probably that there is something, or at least there is a starting effort on that. So this is all my presentation. I don't know if there is any question, but basically what I wanted to talk here is we can call it the other side of developing an application, because sometimes we, in our work, we start thinking about what is the daily development process, but when the application is tested and finished, we still need to work a little more before we can go on party. So thank you so much, and I don't know if there is any question. Yes?
Yes, it's very important work that you have packaged applications. Just to give you an impression from Dolphin Smalltalk, they did a combination between bottom-up dependency and then a strip down afterwards. So just two examples. If you just make a simple hello world program, which is open a window and paint something, then you get including, you can package everything into a single executable, which is just 405K, including the virtual machine. And I have an application which is about 800 classes, and that strips down, including the VM, to 2.5 megabytes only. So you have a dependency graph of all the packages, but then they still do a strip down analysis which can be removed from the packages.
Yes.
So think about that too.
Yes, the comment about a better handling of dependencies, we started basically when, as the question said, about commenting the case in Dolphin Smalltalk that allows to create really small packages with exactly the dependencies that you need. We are working a lot on that from the Pharo side. We started with a big blob and started cutting. Of course, if you ask me, it should have been done before. It should have been taught in the beginning, but we started with a big blob. That is the reality, and now we are trying to cut and cut, and it takes time. And the worst is not that it takes time and is kind of repeating and boring task, is that we have been also working, and we need to work a lot more to guarantee that we are not having a regression. Because it's really, really easy and tempting to add dependencies between each other. And you say, here in this really core package, I want to use that beautiful, I don't know, regex expression there. But you start bringing all the work with you. But yes, I would love to have a small dependency. We started with Guille, and if there is, I don't know if there is interest or not of the community, because as Pharo is basically a community-driven project, we try to measure the temperature of the community to see where do we want to go, or what could be more useful for more people, or the people that give us money. Sorry, it works like that also. But we want to also have more modularization in the side of the VM and choosing what to build or not to build. And in my dream world, I will love that you can choose not only like from the image the dependencies, or even say, this is my application, calculate the dependencies and giving me the minimal image, the minimal VM, or even the minimal library. Because, for example, one thing that happened is that as we are really commitment in not reinventing the wheel, when we deploy in Pharo, we are deploying third-party libraries. And sometimes, I don't know, maybe your application is not using Cairo, or not using the window manager. Why we are porting, or libgit. Once the application is installed, why we are porting libgit? And I would love that we can do it in a more automated way. Yes, Casper.
Sorry, this might be ignorant because I'm not so strong in the history here, but about the stripping thing here, one thing is stripping classes, but I have seen a surprising number of classes with huge amount of methods that I would never ever use. And have there been prior work to stripping out those, or how is that? That must have been tried as well. And why didn't you do that?
It often does that. It also not only strips classes but also methods.
Okay.
Yes, we as Casper said, in Pharo we have a lot of classes that have a lot of methods and a lot of things that I don't know how many applications are using the full API and can be stripped. And yes, we have that problem. We also not only have a lot of classes and things that are not correctly packaged, and we are working on that, but also really big classes that maybe they should be splitted or distributed the responsibility in another way. Mostly of this is basically an historical reason, but it's also because we are working with a live system in the sense that, not live system that we modify, in the sense we have a live project. The project is evolving and we have a lot of contributors. Sometimes we are, as we see, we are 80 or more people trying to say, and sometimes even happens to me that I feel that something is useful and then it was only useful for me in that simple case, and we drag it something inside, and sometimes removing is not so cheap. So since Pharo 8 or Pharo 9, we are trying to keep our hands more close before accepting introducing things, because introducing something is too easy, and removing it in a way that does not affect nobody and try to be polite with the community and polite also between us ourselves is really, really difficult. So the modularization problem, I think if some of you that I have seen you in all the ESUG, we are talking since I came the first time, and I think it was before also a subject before I enter the community. Well, yes, Casper.
I might have missed it because in your talk here, but you had two different models for making an image into an app. But what happens if I want to save the image when the user logs out, but I want to save the image because otherwise I will have to sort of keep all state, even the most ridiculous state, I will have to put it in a database or something like that. So is there a way to do that, or is that just not a scenario that you're pursuing?
Well, the question of Casper is really good. He said, what happened, because in the two scenarios I presented, I was talking about an image that was not modified by the execution. Yes, we thought about that. It's not as simple as the other solutions. We have to think. We don't have a clear idea that we can propose and say, okay, this has advantages and is not overcome by disadvantages. I am not sure if today you ask me how to do it, I will have an answer to tell you. But if you are interested, we can sit and try to think, and we can talk and invite whoever. But yes, it could be a problem because, for example, the signing of the image does not go anymore because we are going to have access to modify something that signs itself. So it's kind of a hole of security, so that you cannot do more. Maybe we need some other technical support to have, I don't know, maybe a solution could be to have a sandboxing or a more secure version that you used to be about the image segment, but in a more safe way. Because again, if you start letting the people load whatever, your security goes to the trash. Yes, Nuri?
The same problem can happen without changing the image, but you are serializing something and loading it back.
Yes, the comment of Nuri is really good, that the same problem can happen if you allow to serialize and deserialize inside objects without caring, because as everything is an object, you can have a nice whole insecurity there. So we need to think about that. The same, I didn't talk about the error handling, because one solution for error handling is, okay, we take the exception and we serialize it and we send it to the developer to fix the error. And what happens if there is critical information there, or information that we don't want to see? How we sanitize it? We don't sanitize it. That's why I'm saying that could be and sometimes even I think I have not covered all the security issues that could be there, so I don't want to talk there because I will say something stupid. Okay, I think we can go to try to eat, and if you have any question, please just take us in the me or Guille or Christophe, that we are trying to work on developing applications for real and try to package it in a way that we are professional, let's say. Thank you, Alex.